All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, What's New in AVEVA System Platform 2023. My name is Tom Trappell, and I'll be your moderator. And today our featured speaker is Ernst van Wyk, Product Manager at AVEVA. Today's webinar will take roughly 45 minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. But before we get started, I do want to mention a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll be providing the recording and slides after today's live event. You can expect an email with all the content we're presenting today following the conclusion of our live webinar. If any of you have questions for Ernst, please feel free to submit them below through the Q&A option on the On24 digital event platform, and we will answer your questions as they arrive. In the event we're not able to get to everyone's question today, we will certainly follow up with a response afterward. And with that, I'd like to now hand it off to Ernst van Wyk to get started with our presentation today. Hey, Ernst, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, or good evening, good afternoon, if there's anyone from the other side of the planet. I'm going to just jump right into it. I've got a lot of content here, and I want to leave a little bit of space at the back for questions if we can get to them. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the history. How did we get to where we are right now? We started off building 2017. What was released in 2017, we started working on that way before that. We started working at the beginning of 2016 or that already. So at that point in time, we of course introduced OMI. So if you're not familiar with OMI, Operations Management Interface, you're going to hear me talk about that a little bit today. But I would really like to invite you to get more familiar with that. That product's been in the market now for over 5 years, so it's really a mature product. We've already had a 2020 release. We had a 2020 R2 release. And of course, the release we're talking about today is going to be the System Platform 2023 release, which we released just about in the beginning of Q3 of this year. Now, when we do these releases, we have a couple of main themes that we always talk about, or that we focus on, and things that we want to make a difference with during the release. So, main themes we talked about for System Platform 2023, UI UX. You'll see a lot of that. We refreshed our UI UX. We did a lot of work on there to make the workflow a little bit better as well. We also did a lot of work on engineering. It's kind of one of my pet projects, is to make the bulk engineering tools of System Platform better. So we did some work on there. Security, as always, is a main focus for us. We did a lot of work on security again. Of course, the apps, when we talk about OMI, we talk about apps. And just to explain about that a little bit, apps is basically the content that we can put on the screen of OMI. So it allows us to build content in a different platform, .NET, or we also have things like web widgets that allows us to build content in HTML5 and JavaScript and things like that. And what an app really allows us to do is when we set focus or set context in OMI, we can actually bring content from somewhere else onto the screen in that same content. So an app might be a map, or it might be a Word document or a Excel spreadsheet or something like that. But the main point is it understands the context. So if you look at, at a specific device or a specific asset, that content comes to the front. And that's apps allows us to do that very well. And of course, scalability. We've had a big run at scalability over the last couple of releases. We think we're pretty good now at this point. So we've done some very big things in scalability, and I'll show that to you as well. So let's delve into the little bits and pieces there. I'm going to try and not be full of PowerPoint for you today. So I'm going to show you a lot of a lot of demonstrations. I'm going to show you some videos. I'm guessing this presentation will be available for you offline, so you can go to the videos again. I'd rather show you the product, so I'm going to talk over what I'm showing there. I cannot pause these videos, so sometimes I'm going to talk a little bit in front or behind what the video is doing, as I want to explain some of the points that you're seeing in this video. So first thing that we're going to talk about is, of course, the UI UX. That's probably the first thing you'll notice. If you open up a new version of System Platform, if you open up the new IDE, for instance, you're going to see that we've done some major work on the UI. What we're going to look at here is the IDE. As we open that, you'll see it's completely new, revamped. You've got a ribbon bar sitting at the top there, new menu structure there. We've tried to work on the workflow to make things easier. You can go to a simplified ribbon menu if that works a little bit better. We've also adopted the backstage, kind of like what Microsoft does. Have the recently opened galaxies. You can pin some galaxies on the side there. We've done some of the workflow we've redone. So you'll see galaxy styles it's a little bit easier to work with and things like that. Okay, so let's go to the next one. It's kind of the next part of it. There's a couple of other things we did in the UI. I can't go through all of the things that we did there to do workflow a little bit better. Would really encourage you to get hold of it and play with it a little bit. But we also had to go and update our help file system. The help file system that we were running up until now, of course, was dependent on Internet Explorer. And as you know, Microsoft deprecated Internet Explorer recently. So we've had to redo our entire help file system. By the way, I encourage you to try that. Press F1 anywhere in the product. You should be able to get to help file. There's some great help documentation videos. There's an entire set of videos that will walk you through how to use OMI, how to use view apps, how to build layouts and things like that. So really would encourage you to have a look at that help file system. To get to that, press F1 wherever you are. Press F1 when you're in the View App Studio or the View App Developer or the Layout Designer, and you'll get to some of these contents. Okay. We've also improved our historical playback. So those of you familiar with historical playback, it allows you to go and open up your visualization in history mode and play back what happened in the past. So this video is going to show a little bit about how we do that, and then I'll show you some of the improvements that we made in there. So what you're looking there, of course, is a live system. I put it into playback. I put some chevrons on there to show it's in live playback mode. I also linked the train control just for fun, so you can, as you slide the slider along and to put yourself at a different date, the train control slider is attached to that. It's pretty easy to do that. So I can say, I've got some alarm sitting there, and I can put myself into playback mode to go and play through all of these alarm conditions in real time. So it's basically playing back history. Now, in the past, you would have known that something that wasn't historized would have given you an error on the screen. We did that on purpose. What we've done now is we allowed you to put something that's not historized, like those alarm limits you see there. They're not historized. You see a little play button there, a triangle, the line. That means that this is live data. That's just to make people aware that they're looking not at history, but they're looking at live data, even though they're in historical playback. For things like tag names and stuff, you can elect not to show that. Of course, you can put things in different speeds of playback and things like that. So really try to get rid of the whole issue that we had in the past, where things that wasn't historized would show up as not available, or would have show up some error on the screen. So that influenced things like tag names and descriptions and the like. So you went into historical mode and you didn't hard code your tag name, the tag name would disappear off the screen. So now it will show up, but you have the option to put that little play button next to it that will show, this specific tag is not history. Just in case you have a live value like an alarm or something that you didn't historize, and you want to make the viewer aware that what he's looking at, even though everything else is history, that is a live value. So would encourage you to play with that as well. I think it really brings out the power of that historical playback and makes it a little bit nicer. Next up is the improvement of alarm and severity counts. Now, inside OMI, you would have seen lots of different little icons. We call them alarm adorners that will show up in different places that will count the number of alarms based on severity, if it's critical or high or low, or medium alarms. And it will tell you there's 4 of these or 3 of these, and it will also show which ones are acknowledged and which are not acknowledged. Up to date, we decided which ones to show and which ones to hide. What we've added now is the ability for a user to go and select which of these alarms should be part of the aggregation, to be part of the counting. To do that, go to the backstage, you go to the configuration. Under Galaxy, you'll see there's alarm and events, and you'll find under the stage there at the bottom, you can now select. Now, the default is it will count silenced and shelved alarms, but some of our customers want to remove, say, for instance, they don't want to count shelved alarms, they only want to count silenced, or you can pick and choose which ones of these you want to count and which you don't want to count in your alarm adorners. That will also go through to the attributes inside System Platform. There's a alarm count by severity array, and those things will also update based on the selection here that you can do. All right, so that's alarm severity counts. Then we've also introduced some new, and I talked about a little bit about OMI apps, and I mentioned web widgets, so I'll mention it again here. We introduced a new web widget called Grid View. Now, what is a web widget? Web widgets is the ability to take HTML5 and JavaScript code, wrap it up, and present that on OMI. We introduced it a couple of versions ago. The main target at that point was to be able to show content inside InTouch Web. Of course, .NET controls and stuff like that don't render inside a web control, so we added web widgets. It also allowed people that have already got JavaScript controls and things like that to go and take them up and bring them to screen. So we introduced that for OMI. And then, of course, we built a couple of these widgets, and we will continue to build that out as we go forward. Now, what I want to show you here is the grid view control, and you'll see that on the left there. Very nice little control. You have to pick the data, select your data from wherever you want to get it, feed it as JSON, feed it as CSV. You can go and filter data in here. You can go and sort data up and down. Doesn't matter how you want to display that. You can interact with it, so it will tell you which row is selected. You can also go and customize that. So I built a little customization configuration screen there. It allows me to set the background color to gray. And you can send things like the fonts and the font full colors and header background colors, header fonts and things like that. What I'm doing here is I'm just making the hover over selection. I'm making that white on blue. So if I move my mouse over these things and I click on them, you'll see that they look a little bit different. So you can go and customize it as you want. It's a pretty neat control. Those of you who might have used the SQL data grid control that we had in the InTouch version, and you could also use that in OMI if you ordered that as an OMI app, would know that there's some security things that go around that. You have to be very careful of security around that because it does allow you to store passwords and stuff in clear text. Our cybersecurity teams no longer allow us to build things that even allow you to do something like that. So this grid control is a much more secure way of doing things, and it works pretty nicely. Another thing that we did in conjunction with this is the ability to put those web widgets on AIG. Now, AIG is an AVEVA industrial graphic. It used to be called Orchestra Graphics way back when. So up until now, you could do that in InTouch. And for OMI, you would have to put a widget inside a panel or a pane inside a layout. What we've added is the ability to go and add these web widgets and run them directly on an industrial graphic. So you can put them on an industrial graphic and write scripting to interact between them. So video you're seeing here is of 3 widgets that I'm running there. I've got my little grid control that you've already seen. I also have a map widget, and I also have a web widget, browser widget, so that I can pull up some Wikipedia page or something like that. And then I'm interacting with buttons and scripting on the graphic. There's nothing that runs in the layout script. And as I showed you earlier, these 3 things are sitting on the screen simultaneously, and they're interactive. So if I click on anything in here, the map will change, the browser will change, and it will select whatever I've selected on the screen. So very nice little way. Again, aimed very much at being able to work in a web environment, InTouch Web, but also OMI Web if it's an enterprise version of the software. But we're talking about supervisory just here right now. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. This button. Talking about engineering, there's a couple of things that makes our life a little bit easier. And one of them is actually quite interesting. It's just the ability to put picture on the screen. Now, pictures have some drawbacks on screens. Be aware of them. If you have very big pictures on screen, we have to take that thing and run it in memory, keep it in memory bit for bit, because you're able to zoom on it and everything like that. So don't overuse images inside graphics. They can get a little heavy on the resources. If you're going to do 50 or 60 of these things on a screen and they're all HD pictures, you're going to see that in memory allocation. But what we did add in 2023 is the ability to dynamically swap out these pictures, which makes life a little bit easier. You don't have to keep 50 images and show only the ones you want. You can actually dynamically in runtime go and select which image you want to show up in this image element. So that's what I did here. I just put a number of pictures on a drive somewhere. Actually, I'm going to subject you to all the pets in my life at this point in time. So as I click the buttons, I'm just loading a picture off the file and inside that frame. Very fast, very easy, nice kind of way to get pictures and the likes changing in runtime. It's a very nice little shortcut for you. Next up is big string data type. This is quite an interesting one. We've got the string type in, we always had the string type in application server. It has some limitations, 1024 characters to be exact is that limitation. And that works for general strings. You wouldn't even have noticed it, but in more modern applications, we see a lot of people working with XML and JSON and CSVs and large string types. So what we've done here is we've added the ability to expose a big string. Now, big string actually did exist in the past. We just made it visible now so users can directly access it. It's not just for user of the toolkit. So what you'll find is if you create a new object or if you open up an object in the new version of application server or system platform, you can now go and select a data type of big string there. And that big string has got no limits on it. We actually using, and what I'm doing here is I'm going to just read a file. I'm actually going to read the Great Gatsby from text and dump it in there. And we didn't put any limits on that. We're using the .NET string, which says, I think the limit is, by the operating system, is something like 2 gigabytes. I wouldn't recommend you put, change all your strings to 2 gigabyte strings in your Galaxy. That is going to have an impact on your performance and stuff. But it does allow you to, create a couple of big strings, pull in those JSONs, XMLs, or, very large strings that you need to go and pass through in runtime, which makes your life a lot easier in that manner. All right. Next up is one of my favorite ones, bulk import utility. Sorry, not bulk import utility, the Galaxy load. Used to be called Galaxy load. We now call it the CSV load. And that allows you to create assets in bulk. So you can go and build a number of instances by just building them in a CSV file. Now, you've always been able to do that, but those things did not support wizardry. So you wouldn't be able to add wizards, options, and things like that. We've now made it possible to do that. Now, to use this, you select a couple of things, and you can go and export it, or you can go and export all of them. Since it's export your selected to CSV. That's what the CSV file looks like. First thing to note is we've added IO device there. So if you're using the IO device assignment, you can now do that in bulk in the CSV. That should be welcomed by many people. And you'll see those are the wizards there. So you can see you can select the default or you can override the default. That little link icon you see there means it's a setting for that's associated with a wizard. So you can, again, take the default setting or you can override these settings. Something else we did just to make life a little bit easier is you'll see in brackets at the top there, you'll see that we've also added the type of the attributes or that's in the system platform. That makes it a little bit easier to know what you're working with, so you can see you're working with a string or you're working with a float or a double or what it is that you're working with. I think this is a pretty neat feature. It allows us to in bulk go and configure wizardry and set settings and things like that. You no longer have to fiddle with an XML string in there to go and figure out what's going on. Okay. Another thing that we did on the engineering side is, and you may be familiar with this, is probably, I don't know how many years ago now, we used to do our IO connections with a set of DI objects. These at the back end work with dash servers, which was our own IO, old IO technology. Something that we've now replaced with OI servers, which is much faster. But we don't use the DI objects anymore. Those DI objects have got some old technology and we want to get rid of them over time. The problem was these things had different behaviors. They had default scan groups, and the way that you would build them is you would build a hierarchy of these DI objects, and your whole reference path had to go and have that hierarchy, backplane.cpu.io, and those kind of things, which means that if you wanted to swap it out with an OI server, you would have to go and redo all your references, all your IO references, either in the CSV if it's direct, or in the alias list if it's through alias list, or you would have to go and adjust your scripts, which made it painful to go and adopt OPC client working on top of OI server. So what we've done is we've made that easier. This is our step one of doing this automatically for you. In the OPC client now, you'll see that we've added a default group in there. So you don't have to go and create your own group. You can use a default. That makes it easier to use the DI objects, convert from the DI objects as well. We also added a hierarchical path in there, which allows me to go and simulate that hierarchical path that the DI object had to, that you built in the DI object, which means that if you swap it out with an OPC client, you can just simply provide that hierarchical path in there. You don't have to redo any of your scripts, you don't have to redo any of your references, any of your aliases, anything like that. You can directly take out those old DI objects, put it in an OPC client on top of an OI server, and without any other work, you will reap all the benefits of working on OI servers. So that's a pretty neat feature as well. Then, of course, there's a GR Access toolkit. That's probably our biggest engineering toolkit we have. That allows you to do anything that you can do in the GR. You can do that programmatically. In the past, this one had to be able to, you had to go and work with that same XML string that you had in the CSV dump and load. You had to go and figure that out to do wizardry. We've added the ability to do that directly in the GR Access toolkit now. You can manipulate wizards, settings, create templates with wizards and settings and all sorts of things in the GR Access toolkit. I don't have a demonstration. I didn't put a demonstration here. The demo I have for the GR Access toolkit is a little bit long. I do have that if anyone is interested. Just reach out to me and I can share that with you. All right. In terms of security, now security has got many aspects to it. There's the security of the whole product, but there's also security inside the product. And one of the main things we did inside is we now support Azure Active Directory. As everyone on this call is probably aware, is the Galaxy repository can use local, the GR Galaxy repository can use local security or Windows security or Windows group security. We now allow it to also use Azure Active Directory, and I think many people on this call are already using Azure Active Directory in their daily lives, use it in Outlook and all of those kind of things. So we also wanted to go and support that in our product. And the way we do that is we have to go and configure that first up. So we allowed the product to be able to configure external authentication providers. Azure AD is the first one we're going to do. We'll do other ones as well. You do that in the configurator, authentication provider, select Azure AD, give it the endpoint. And that means that in the security settings of the GR, of the IDE, you can go and select Azure AD as your security provider, and you can then use it exactly as you would have used OS Group security. So it will allow you to go and set permissions, and you can have operational parameters, and you can do things like access levels, etc. And of course, the moment you click OK, it will work exactly like it did for normal security. It's going to require you to log in. It will immediately detect when you log in. We'll see, this is an AVEVA login or whatever your company is. And of course, all of the two-factor authentication and all of those things will automatically be done by Microsoft, right? So Azure AD will do all of that for you to log you in. The same in runtime. The moment you supply your login credential, it's going to figure out what your company is, your Azure AD. It will give you the correct login page, and again, do all of the authentication, two-factor authentication, and whatever is necessary to get you in there. And of course, once it's logged in, it will recognize you as an Azure AD user and then give you all the rights and permissions that has been assigned to roles inside Azure AD. So that's our first step here to get multiple authentication providers for you. Azure AD, we think is pretty cool. And we encourage you to use that and let us know what you think about it. This one is kind of interesting. I called it CFR 21 Part 11 security logs, but what it's actually about is in order to conform with some of the CFR 21 Part 11, which is a specification in our pharmaceutical industries, we need to make sure that we securely log when a user is logged in or logged off, or if there's any attempt to log it failed. So we added that to make sure that it's properly logged in OMI. We do that kind of thing. If you first start up, you'll see the event will log here that the machine is started up. Once you've logged in, it's also going to log a second event. It's going to tell you, yep, this person successfully logged in at that time. and you can see exactly who's logged in and when they logged in. And then, of course, you can, if you log in with a false password or something that doesn't exist, or a user that doesn't exist, it will fail the login. But you'll also see in your event log, it will now show up as a failed login. It logs things like the startup and shutdown of your program. So if you log out, it will log the logout. If you shut down, it will log the shutdown. It will also support things like Azure AD. So if it's an Azure AD user that logs in or logs out, it will also log that for it. So it's not just for the normal users. This gives us a little bit of extra security to go and figure out. And you can do things, if you want to, you can do things like detect failed logins and report back that someone tried to log and it failed. If you wanted to investigate something like that to make your system more secure. Then this one I don't have any video with. I'll just quickly talk about cybersecurity. We have a commitment on our side to always carve out a little bit of our capacity for cybersecurity. We have penetration testing and things that we do with our software. I can't go into too much details of the things that we actually do, but we prioritize these things. We take the ones that are the highest priority, and we knock them down every PI, every quarter that we run. PI is a programming increment. It basically comes down to a quarter. So every time we go to work, we look at these cybersecurity issues, and we make sure that we keep on hardening and hardening our software so that we have, I'm going to say, the most secure software in this industry. Okay, let's move on to apps a little bit. Now, a couple of things we did in apps is, first of all, we did alarm group and event message translation. So alarm message translation was done in InTouch a while back. We ported that to OMI in a previous version, I think in 2020 or to SP1, that became available. But we wanted to make it better. We wanted to add more of this, so we added event message translation and group translation as well. Now, the way that, if you're not familiar, the way that alarm translation works is that you can select objects that you want to go to and export their localization, or you can just go to the backstage again and say, export all localization for everything. We want to do all the alarm fields, pick a language. I'm picking my home language, which is Afrikaans, exporting that to CSV, and it allows me to put all the alarm messages there, but now also all the group names as well as all the event messages can be in there. And then you can go and import those messages again. And of course, now in runtime, you can swap around between languages. So what I'm doing there is just kicking off a couple of events in alarm. So you can see it's all in English at this point in time. I go to my language, select over up to Afrikaans. Everything in the system changes over to Afrikaans, including all of the alarms messages, all of the event messages, as well as all of the group names have now switched language. So we'll continue to make our language translation and localization for foreign customers and non-English speaking customers better. Okay. Next up is the Content Presenter, specifically called Content Presenter 2022, that ships as part of the Application Server 2023. The reason why it has a different version is these applications, these OMI apps, they are also available to be downloaded out of band. So you can go and download them from GCS if you have access there. And GCS is our global customer first support group. You can go and download them there and use them directly, even in previous versions of the product. Now, the new Content Presenter has a couple of new things that we've added in there. We actually just streamlined it and made it more consistent with other things that we've done. That's one of the main things that we did. So you'll find follow current context tick box there. We changed it from the previous, I can't even remember what that was. We also cleaned up some of the ways that we configure things. The old deprecated attributes are still available, but we did make the new ones a little bit better. We added the ability to put siblings in there, and you can select multiples now. You can say, look at this specific home node and go and find all of its siblings and all of its children, or just go find all the siblings, or just go find the children, or only look at itself. So what you'll see here is if I select California and it's only looking at siblings, it shows me all of the other states in the West, but it doesn't show me California because I told it, don't show me South, only show me siblings. So, it allows you to go and build very nice menu structures that will, the integrity of it will still remain so that if you switch between different siblings, then the sibling that you selected is not in the menu anymore. So you can build some nice menu systems and things like that. All right, that is Content Presenter 2022. Then the Map app. Now the Map app is something that has grown. There's a lot of people using it, and there's a lot of requirements around of it. And in fact, the Map app is so big, I'm going to put a separate stream for it. I'll talk quickly through the ones that we've added there, and then I'll show you the video on it. We've added asset-specific zoom levels. We've added initial assets so that when it starts up, that you can make sure that it always selects the correct asset. There's a view app namespace interaction, so you can have direct view app access to the view app namespace with your graphics. That's on the Map app. We've added layer controls. You can switch layers on and off dynamically. We've added dynamic properties to read some of the properties dynamically. And we've also added the ability to add content dynamically. So let me go and show you rather than me talking through all of those points myself. So what you're looking at here is, of course, a Map app. It's of the United States. I'm zoomed out a little bit, and if you know how layers work, as you zoom in, you can have some of these layers become live. So as I zoomed in, I can now see the regions. I'm deep enough in there that I can actually see the regions and divisions, and I can switch them on and off. This is something that we've added now, layer control. We can switch those layers on and off dynamically. Now, the other thing, as I said, we've got access to the view app namespace, which means that if I select something, I can actually have that thing that's selected interact with the view app namespace. So I can do things like, if I'm selected, put a little halo around me. Whether I'm selected by clicking on me on the map or clicking somewhere else, I can recognize that I'm selected and I can halo myself on there. This allows me also to do nice things like maybe building a search button. So what I did there is in search for M. So it will show me all of the, and I've got country, region, and division selected. It will show me all of the M's of all of those things in there. We also have dynamic properties. So I'm zooming in on Nevada there. I put a little X or a plus in the middle there where my middle of the screen is. I'm going to move that around to more or less Las Vegas, and you'll see it tells me the zoom and it tells me the latitude and longitude live. But I can also go and interact with that. So I can actually go and change that zoom level to 32. I can put a whatever latitude and longitude I want. I'm going to put myself in the middle of Alaska there. And you'll see that I can dynamically now change the position in there as well. Now, another thing that was interesting to us is when you're looking at something on the same level, in this case, we're looking at states, they sometimes are different sizes. For instance, Alaska is quite big. So what we've added is individual zoom levels. So you see Alaska is zoomed into 28, but if I pick a small state like Rhode Island, it's zoomed all the way to 53 to make sure that it fits. So you can have now specific zoom levels that overrides the layer zoom level if you wanted to do that. Makes it very nice to work with different size assets. Now, the little tick box I'm switching on there is to show the last feature, which is to dynamically add assets. And it runs a little script. So if I click main there, it's going to run a script. And what's interesting about this is the counties that I'm showing there, they don't exist in the database. They don't exist in the system platform. They're somewhere in a SQL database. So when I click on something like Massachusetts, it runs through the database, goes and fetch all the counties with their latitude and longitudes, and does that dynamically. This means I can dynamically add and remove assets from my map in runtime. This is a very nice feature to have if you have things like vehicles that go and get sparked and is not used, and when they go back into use, you want to add them to the map and things like that. So you don't have to go and create an object inside system platform, inside application server to represent everything on the map. You can do that dynamically in runtime. All right, so that's the Map app. Really encourage you to go and play with it. It's a pretty neat Map app. We're going to continue improving that Map app. We've got some great new things coming in the future for that as well. It is a really pretty nice tool to use. Then lastly, let's talk a little bit about scalability. Now, scalability has always been interesting for us. System platform was built as a huge system, right? It wasn't built to run a single plant or something like that. Right from the start, we talked about millions of I/O and tens of thousands, up to 100,000 objects and things like that. And we really expanded over time, over the last 15, almost 20 years. AVEVA System Platform has grown. We've got systems running millions of I/O and hundreds and thousands of objects. We've introduced multi-galaxy communication. We run tests internally. I just the other day saw a test that we were running 55 galaxies connected to one another. Bearing in mind that you can run 1 million I/O on each of those galaxies, you can have 55 of them talking to one another. And we ran a single OMI getting 100 graphics from each of those 55. So 5,500 graphics on one screen, sourced from 55 different galaxies. And we still hit all of our PSR marks. So it still opened up within 2 seconds and all of those things. It was all of PSR, meaning performance and things like that, is like how fast things open and how reliable they open and things like that. So we still met all of our marks there, even though we were sourcing that from 55 galaxies. So scalability has come a long way. One of the things that we did in previous versions is we swapped over to Flex. So I don't want to talk about Flex too much here, except if there's someone that asks me questions on it, I will be happy to speak another 20 minutes on Flex. But Flex allows me to license in multiple ways. So that the first way we introduced was to license a platform or to license a machine, and you would license it to the number of Flex engines that you application engines that you want to use. We allowed you to have single or unlimited app engines, but we recently introduced the ability to run multiple of these, and in 2023 we made it very easy to run multiple of these. So just to show you how that works a little bit. And the nice thing about Flex is you're not licensing on I/O. I don't care how much I/O you use. You can use as much I/O as you want. I'm only counting the number of machines you're running and what you're running on those machines. So if I look at this platform there, it's got no app engines licensed. So if I add app engines to it, you'll see the little red X's showing to me that that those engines can't deploy. If I click on it, it's going to show me the warning. I do have licenses available. I just need to go and assign them. So the way to assign them is right-click on there. I can go to counted app engines. This is the new feature now. And I can go and still add one engine if I wanted to. You'll see the one engine that I added is now no longer got a red X because it's now available to be deployed. But I can also add many engines. So if I add 4 or 5 or something like that there, you can see that I think at this point I put 4 or 5 engines. You can still see that the 6th one cannot be deployed at this point in time. So this is just a little feature to make it easier to add multiple engines on Flex. Makes it a lot easier to go and license the product. And of course, as I said before, you don't have to go and count I/O. That's probably the nicest thing about Flex is don't worry about, am I using too many I/O or not? Am I legal or am I not legal? Makes it a lot easier. Then this is probably one of the bigger things that we did over the last, 2 years, is checking performance. One of the things that we ran into is when we tested originally, we ran, I think in the original Galaxy, it was 85,000 objects. So checking in took a while on that. But we now have Galaxies that run about 500,000 objects. Never mind I/O, just objects in there. And checking in those things can take a very long time, or used to in the older versions. So with the last couple of PIs, the last couple of quarters and releases, we've gone and made the check-in much, much faster. And with the previous release, we did most of the work. We just didn't do the wizardry. We didn't allow objects that had wizards configured or wizard settings configured to check in at that speed, because we still had to make changes to the database to accommodate that. But that's all completed now. So we have done the work to improve the check-in performance. And the way I'll show it to you is I'm going to run the current version versus an old version. Actually, it's a beta version that I'm running. But this is a Galaxy that's got 10,000 objects in there. They are fairly complex objects. So they we put a couple of attributes in there, put some wizards in there, put some graphics in there, assign these things. So it's not a plain dead object. Then if I check it in the 2023 version, bearing in mind I'm running 10,000 of these objects that I'm checking in, it takes me around about 30 seconds, half a minute. And then just below that in the small box, I'm doing the same check-in on just the previous version, and you'll see running that 10,000 object check-in was around about 25 minutes. So it's an order of magnitude change in the speed that we see with check-ins there. So it should make life a lot easier for our developers. Okay. Now, those are all the things that are available in System Platform 2023 today. And this is the supervisory side of System Platform 2023. So let's talk about that a little bit. When I showed it to you this way, what I didn't tell you is that we actually have 2 editions. We also have a System Platform Enterprise Edition that we launched at the same time. Our System Platform Enterprise Edition is aimed at our enterprise customers. And what I'm meant by that is not the size of the customer, but where it's used. We saw a lot of System Platform getting used on the IT side of the fence. So we started seeing customers that don't have things like PLCs or DCSs or even IO. They're actually getting data from SQL databases and cloud queries and data lakes and things like that. And System Platform could still do the work for them, but it had different requirements, different from the supervisory side. So we decided to create 2 editions. So in one, we can focus on the supervisory environment, and the other one, we can focus on the enterprise environment to make sure that those 2 things don't influence each other negatively. So you'll hear us talk about unified operation centers. You'll hear us talk about AVEVA Operations Control Enterprise. That's what that System Platform Enterprise product is for. And in this version that we released, things that we've added in there that's different for the supervisory is there's some apps and widgets that are really made for enterprise environments that doesn't really work on a supervisory environment. But the main thing that we added for this release is OMI Web, giving someone the ability to take the visualization not just to 20 customers in a control room or to a big wall somewhere, but to take it really to handheld devices and web browsers and take it outside of the OT environment, outside of our control environment. So the OMI Web is something that we're going to keep on working on. It's at this point in time, if you're familiar with OMI and you work with OMI Web, you'll find that OMI Web doesn't have all the capabilities yet. So it actually fits very well in the enterprise environment, but it wouldn't have fit on the supervisory environment at this point in time. We're also doing OMI as a service. That's also on the enterprise side. So about mid next year, you're going to see on the enterprise side having OMI as a service. I'll pause there for a second and just tell you exactly how neat this is. Instead of having to run a server that runs OMI and then serves up the visualization to browsers or even to desktop machines, we deploy our OMI visualization into the cloud. Right? There's a cloud service. You don't have to run any of your hardware, and of course that's exposed to the internet side of things. So you can take your phone and connect to that cloud OMI and run OMI visualization directly on your phone from the internet. So it really expands our user base from being able to serve 50 or 100 viewers to being able to serve thousands of customers. And of course, we'll also have a System Platform 2023 R2, a supervisory one that's associated there. And the good news is we aim to, at that release, also release an OMI Web for the supervisory side of the world. So if you're very unhappy that we only have OMI Web on enterprise, you can see that you should be happy that we now have it coming out for the supervisory side. The reason why there's a delay is we needed those things to have a much more parity in terms of features with the actual desktop version, so that we have a better understanding of that. And then just for fun, and I put those in quotation marks, right? They are definitely in quotes. At some point in time, we are going to look at something like a system platform as a service. This may not be application server as we know it today. This might be some evolution of it. We are working today with testing certain technologies, doing proof of concepts and things like that. We want to be able to move a platform into cloud that will be able to definitely at first serve our enterprise customers, but also maybe for the more adventurous of us, we might start seeing SCADA in the cloud, probably for less risky business. but I do think that we're going to see something like that. Right, my 45 minutes is up in just about 7 seconds, so I think I timed that pretty good. So I'll hand back to Tom.
Thank you, Ernst. Okay, folks, at this time, we're going to take questions from the audience. Once again, please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A option on the On24 digital event platform, and we will answer your questions as they arrive. And once again, if we're not able to get to everyone's question today, we will follow up with responses afterward. And we had a number of questions come in here. So I'm just going to start from the beginning, and hopefully we'll get to everyone's question, but if not, we'll definitely reply with responses later. Ernst, can older versions of System Platform be migrated seamlessly into 2023?
Yes. Now, seamless is always a fun part. I would never recommend you take your new media or your new ISO and stick it into a running plant and go upgrade. Right? The product is extremely configurable, and we try to cater for and test multiple galaxies during an upgrade, but we cannot cater for all of the iterations as combinations or permutations that we can have in our product. So I would always say, get yourself an offline galaxy and do the upgrade there. Run some smoke tests on it. A very nice environment to do this on is our integration studio environment. If you have access to that, you can get some credits to run there. That allows you to spin up a new application server, put your software, put your Galaxy on there, do the configuration, the conversion on there, run some smoke tests, make sure it runs properly, and then take that Galaxy. It also helps minimizing your conversion time, because very big galaxies, these conversions can take you up to a day to run. So yeah, I would say we try to make these upgrades as seamless as possible. But if I'm going to be honest with you, test it before you do it. I would also always recommend that. Especially there might be some scripting that you've used that may be a bit different.
Ernst, how many facilities or tags or points can be controlled from one SCADA application?
Oh, it depends what you call one SCADA application. System platform, and especially when we start talking about flexes, we're trying to move to unlimited here. We're trying to say, we're not going to limit you. Your limit's going to come from your hardware. So if you do, if you go all the way in, do applications, AVEVA operations control, that allows you to go and license an entire site. You only tell us which users are going to interact with the software. So the only thing we count is users. We don't count I/O. We don't count installations. We count nothing else. You only tell us how many users you have that's going to interact. And in that case, you can install whatever you want, however many of it that you want to. So if you want to run big servers, you can run, we have specifications that will allow you to, on a pretty standard run-of-the-mill server, run 100,000 I/O. If you want to spend $1 million on a server, you could probably get to 500,000 I/O on that server. And then if you have 10 of those servers, you can split them up over multiple galaxies. We don't often see a single galaxy going over 1 million I/O. Most customers prefer to run around 500,000 I/O. That's just because it gives you very natural breakpoints in the responsibility for the engineering. It allows you to do things like that. And of course, multi-galaxy communication means you have less strain over your networks and your resource environment. So you'll see customers that will run, 20 million I/O, and they'll go and split this over 40 galaxies, for instance. And because it's a pretty big system, and then they have different responsibilities of these things. So there's ways and means of doing that. A single SCADA is very difficult to define. I can talk more about that, but I think the answer is you're limited by your hardware, sir.
Thank you, Ernst. Going back to the big string that you mentioned earlier in the presentation, how many total characters are available?
So we use the .NET definition of a string, and that definition I think allows 2 gigabytes, which would be 204, a lot, more than if in a normal 32-bit environment you can run 3.5 gigs of RAM. So you'll be able to handle 2 strings in that if they're fully loaded. I've never seen anyone use 2 gigabytes of strings. I actually, when I started playing around with that, running big XML files and stuff in there. You have to. I've never seen a 2 gigabyte XML file. If you have that, you probably have some other problem. So there's no limit on there. When we built this, I'll quickly say, as the R&D folks wanted me to put a limit and say, these guys are going to hang themselves. And I said, no, we've got intelligent customers. They won't try to use 6,000 2 gigabyte big strings in their system. They'll be responsible. So we didn't put any limit on there. You can hang yourself if you want to, but no limit.
Excellent. We had a few questions come in regarding the map application you showed. The first one, do client machines require internet access for the map app to work?
Directly, yes. So there's two answers here. The map app by default has the availability to run on Bing, Google, ArcGIS, it's the Azure one. You can run multiple of these. Of course, those ones are typically hosted somewhere on the internet, and you have to have access to the internet. But there is also a tech note, or I think it's a tech note, available that will tell you how to set up your own tile server. It will walk you through step by step. Go and fetch your own tile server. You're going to have to pay for that tile server. You can set it up locally and point your map app to that, which means no connection to the internet.
Great. Hold on one second here. Are there specific map providers that need to be used? Like, which are the map providers?
Map providers today, off the top of my head, good grief. Google, Bing Maps, OpenStreetMaps, ArcGIS, and then we support some of the open connectivity layers and stuff. I don't have them off the top of my head. If you open up a map app, if you just open up the editor, it will show you which ones are there by default, and that includes the custom tile server.
Okay, great. Overall, can you add a customized app, sort of like using your platform as a portal?
I don't know that I fully understand what you're asking, but I'll answer it this way. OMI that's actually one of the reasons why we went into enterprises. It works very well as a portal. The desktop version of it becomes very much a portal because you have this navigation that automatically builds itself, but you also have the ability to go and grab content from other places. It can be a web page from somewhere. It can be an Excel spreadsheet or a video feed or a map. What else can there be? I'm trying to think quickly. SharePoint, any kind of different content. You can add that into OMI, which means it functions very well as a portal. You can also go and build your own apps. We've got a nice little SDK. It's called AVEVA SDK. So if you search for that on the media, you'll find it there. That allows you to to build your own .NET application and bring that into application server and OMI. So if you build your own controls, you can do that. If you have an existing .NET control, you can simply say to the IDE, import OMI app, point it to that .NET control. We'll do all the work of wrapping that, making sure it works, and it will stick it in your graphic toolbox, and you can use it directly. So if you have other content, you want to build your own apps, or you already have apps existing, you can use that. If your apps are created in HTML5 and JavaScript, you can create a web widget with that, and you can bring that with that. So hopefully I answered that question.
So if someone wanted to add a customer-specific app that they developed, that would be possible?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Great. Our next question, how could someone organize a connection to MS Azure if they don't have a connection to their SCADA site system via the Ethernet? Would they be able to use something like DMZ Zone or something like that?
We are looking at that. That is one of the other things that we run into with the reasons why we have enterprise and supervisory separate. Is typically most companies are much more happy to have the enterprise, the IT side of the firewalls, talk to Azure AD and things like that. They typically have that already. Whereas on the OT side, they get a little bit more nervous about that. So at this point in time, you would have to have your IT guys open up through the firewalls and make sure that you get the correct connections in there. I don't have them off the top of my head. I can say I cannot elaborate that. I can say that we have an initiative in our R&D side to see if we can create tunneling mechanisms that will allow direct tunneling to, to do things like that, to be on from your OT side, get directly to Azure AD and back, without compromising security at all, of course.
Thank you, Ernst. In regards to the OMI web, is it possible to have it running as on an on-premise server?
Oh, absolutely. That was what it was designed for first. So the enterprise version is definitely an on-premise server. It works exactly like an OMI box. So you deploy to an OMI box and then you can have custom connection to that. If you have the 2023 release version, even in demo mode, you should be able to have play at least with one version of that in preview mode. It's not going to be fully functional. There's going to be some gaps in that, but yes, you can run that. You can run that on a server locally. And when we move into the 2023 R2 release with the supervisory version of that web server, that will definitely be the point that we aim at first, is to have an on-prem web server.
Are there any other updates that you want to mention regarding like the visualization or functionality on the system platform management console with 2023?
Say that again.
We have an individual wondering if there are additional like visual or functionality updates on the system platform management console with this new release.
Oh, the management, the SMC you're talking about, what we call, I think it's changed now. I hope there's no one from marketing here, because I think I just used the wrong name. But yes, that management console, we have not updated the visualization on that for this release. We are working on that. It wasn't ready for this release. So the 2023 R2 release will have updates on that. There's some fun parts in there. I'll delve into the nerdy part of it just a little bit. There's a lot of decom in our software, or not a lot, but there is some decom in our software, and we are ripping that out as far as we can. Everyone here is probably familiar with the decom hardening things that Microsoft started up. So we are trying to get rid of that, and that will also influence the SMC in places. So we hope to, by our 2023 R2 release, have a newish system management console for you.
Great. We just wanted to recover this one question. We had an individual asking, can someone run more than one Galaxy at the same time on the same machine?
No, that is unfortunately the only way you can do that is by splitting it up into virtual machines. That would be the only way to do that. You can only deploy a single Galaxy at a time. That just makes communication a lot faster. If you have to sort out between machines which Galaxy is talking to which, it means in terms of program, there's an if statement in front of every communication that you're doing, so everything will just slow down immediately. So right from the beginning, we designed it so that a single Galaxy can only reside on a single machine. A machine cannot belong to different Galaxies. But of course, if you have a big enough machine that you want to do that, you can put two virtual machines on there. Like that.
Great, thank you. Are there any plans for the visualization of meters with 2023?
We did not make any additional changes to the meters at this point. We've got the situational awareness meters out there. We've also got a number of 3D meters and graphics on there. So we didn't make any additional changes there. Of course, the product is open enough that anyone can take any of those things and redo them and build them like they want. We also found recently that's quite interesting. A number of people looking at apps, instead of building a graphic, they would go to companies like Telerik or so and get because the product, the visualization we use on the desktop side is WPF, right? Windows Presentation Foundation. They'll go to a Telerik or somewhere, pull off a WPF control for a pie chart or for something like that, and just feed it with data and runtime. Then you don't have to go and build your own visualization. So we didn't do anything for specifically. We think we have a very big variety of things available there, also allowing customers to open that up and rip it apart and make whatever changes they want.
Great. Thank you, Ernst. Okay, folks, we're approaching the end of the hour, so we're just going to take one more question today. And if we were not able to get to your questions during the hour, we will certainly follow up with a response afterward. Ernst, our final question for today, is the compatibility updated with all the versions available for other products like MES, Skelta, WorkTask, etc.?
We always work with the other parts of the software to try and make those updates. I don't know if we hit all of them. There's a compatibility matrix available on the GCS website that should tell you which ones we are compatible with and which ones not. There may be some parts that we didn't hit that should be called out. That might also be in the README. I don't know off the top of my head which ones we made and which ones we didn't make, but you should be able to get that information. Just to explain quickly why we don't always hit those. Sometimes we have to make structural changes to the things that we do, and by the time we have that done, we're ready to release. But the product that depends on us, we can only give it to them when we're done, right? So they lag behind us a quarter or two to get a patch or something that will understand that change. Sometimes we run into those kind of things. We don't want to build software and then put it on a shelf for 6 months and wait for the other products to catch up on.
Great. Thank you, Ernst. Okay, folks, we've reached the end of the hour, so we appreciate you taking the time and spending with us regarding the new update of System Platform 2023. If you would like to hear more about AVEVA Operations Controller System Platform coming soon, we would invite you to join us for AVEVA World San Francisco happening in November. There's a link to the registration page available on your screen, and we hope to see you there. Also, I'd like to invite all of you to the next release event that we have coming up at the end of November, and that's for AVEVA Plant SCADA 2023. You can find a link to that registration page available in the resource list with a copy of our presentation today, a couple documents regarding System Platform and Operations Control, along with a blog by our product marketing manager, Jeremy Wilbert. Once again, thank you all for attending, and Ernst, thanks again for a great presentation.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your day.
Take care, everyone.